Welcome to Biff's Mystery Theater. I have many tales to tell you. Ghost stories, murder stories, and tales that will make your bones chill. Join me, won't you? For Theater of the Mind, where you always have the best seat in the house. Now close your eyes and turn off the lights.
This is Orson Welles, speaking from London. The Black Museum. Here in the grim stone structure on the Thames, which houses Scotland Yard, is a warehouse of homicide. A museum of everyday objects. Cigarette boxes, appointment books, a hat rack. All are touched by murder. Now here's a brickbat. Coarse-grained, rough-edged, familiar. Perhaps your own home is built of bricks, exactly like this one. In this case, however, no home was built by such a brick. Rather, a home was destroyed by it. Destroyed forever.
It's still such a normal-looking object, Inspector.
Is it really? With that broken corner? With the stains still on its edges?
I suppose you're right, sir. If there's one thing that can upset normalcy, it's spilt blood.
And today, that blood-stained brickbat can be seen. Here in the Black Museum.
From the annals of the Criminal Investigation Department of the London Police, we bring you the dramatic stories of the crimes recorded by the objects in Scotland Yard's Gallery of Death, the Black Museum.
Well, here we are in the Black Museum. Scotland Yard's Museum of Murder. Yes, here lies death. Upon these tables, within these cabinets, the files of death, labeled with day and date and name of victim. Here's a hat rack. Odd to find such a commonplace object here, perhaps, but observe. Here where the wood curves from base to shaft, 3 brownish stains. Blood dripped here from a weapon concealed within the lining of an overcoat. 3 stains, which placed a murder at the scene of crime. Broken alibi. That's another story. Here's our brickbat. Of such bricks are garden walls built. Later, the ivy or some such creeping vine grows over them, hiding the sharp edges, softening the 4 square contours. This brick, too, was meant for such bucolic purposes. But as it happened, things didn't work out that way. We might say it all began when young Anne Friskin composed an advertisement and told her much older husband, James, about it.
So you're placing an advertisement. Wanted, boy, about 18. References, handyman work. Some such thing?
Exactly, dear.
Oh, very good. Only don't let him get too close to Alma. It might not be good, boy.
A simple domestic scene. Wife cooperating with husband, or the other way around, if you prefer. Some small mention of the husband's cousin who stays with them. That's all. The advertisement appears in the usual help wanted columns. Several young men apply. One is Dick Terry.
Yes, Mum, I've had some experience during the summer at my uncle's place in Dorset.
The money's all right?
Oh, quite generous, Mum. What with the room over the garage and all.
Well, your references seem quite good. And a good school report, too.
The boy settled into his job and worked out well. The gravel driveway was soon in good condition. The lawns were well mowed. The bricks were ordered for the repair job on the garden wall. Yes, the bricks were ordered. And in the household, all was well and quite normal.
One more hand, ladies?
If you wish, James.
Aren't you satisfied with beating us again, dear?
I suppose I should be. But it must be somewhat dull for you, Anne, dear, night after night with just Alma and me.
In the household, as we've said, all was well and quite normal. Undercurrents, if you look for them, perhaps otherwise a retired, well-to-do gentleman in a suburban London home, living quite happily with his lovely young wife and his cousin Alma. Still, one never knows, does one?
Good morning, Dick.
Oh, all right.
Oh, the work is coming well, isn't it?
Yes. Lovely day, isn't it?
Nothing quite like the springs we get here, is there?
Awfully quiet there.
Yes, I
Yeah?
suppose it is. For someone your age.
Begging your pardon, Mum, it don't seem to me like you'd be giving up just yet.
Oh, thank you, Dick. It's nice of you to say so. Aren't you getting those bricks a trifle uneven, Dick?
Oh, that's on purpose, Mum. It's a trick I learned from my uncle. It gives the creepers and vines and such a better hold.
It's clever. You do know your work, don't you?
I hope so, Mum. Person likes to do his work where he's appreciated.
Well, you are. No fear about that. And just to prove it, come up to the house later and we'll see about finding you a nice cold drink. On a warm day like this, a cold drink would...
No, after all, it's quite natural, isn't it? You do as much for your help, wouldn't you? No one would think anything of it. No one did in the Friskin household either until these trips for the long, cool drinks became somewhat habitual, at which point Alma spoke to Anne.
Do you really think you're doing the proper thing, Anne? Of course, it's none of my business, I suppose, but...
What are you driving at?
That boy.
He's an excellent worker.
People will talk.
About what, pray?
Oh, nothing. But people will talk about nothing, you know. And if James should hear from the wrong person...
Please be explicit, Alma. I don't happen to have a devious mind.
It's quite simple. James is past middle age. You're young, vital. The boy is undeniably attractive with that flaming hair and all. And he is up here at the house quite a good deal.
And you're suggesting...
No, of course not. I am merely pointing out to you how it can look to the neighbors.
Frankly, I don't care. Please don't bring the subject up again, Alma. I refuse to discuss it with you.
Alma did not bring up the subject again, not with Anne. However, she waited for an opportunity and then...
James,
Yes, Alma?
I want to talk to you.
Aren't we rather formal today? Closed doors and all that sort of thing?
I'm not speaking behind anyone's back. I've already taken this up with Anne.
Oh? What's the trouble?
It's that boy, Dick Terry.
Dick? Alma, don't tell me he's been making advances.
That's not funny, James.
Oh, sorry. What then?
Anne is letting him spend too much time at the house. His place is in the garden and the garage. People will talk.
Aren't you doing a bit of talking yourself, Alma?
I'm doing my duty as I see it.
Then you've mistaken your duty. I'm fully capable of protecting my honor, as you doubtless would call it. And I'll thank you, Alma, not to bring this up again. Although, doubtless, you have the best intentions in the world.
Very well, James. But if anything does occur, you'll thank me for warning you.
Yes, Alma awaited her opportunity and spoke to James. That worthy and decent gentleman dismissed the incident from his mind. That should have been the end of it. Unfortunately, however, the whole matter was reopened, and in quite a different quarter.
Good morning, Dick.
Morning, Mum.
Oh, the hedge does look nice.
Thank you, Mum.
Is anything wrong, Dick?
Matter of fact, I'm giving notice.
Why, Dick, but why?
I'm giving notice.
But what's wrong? Have I done something? Or is it about your money? Because if so, I'll speak to Mr. Friskin at once.
Don't bother, Mum. I'm leaving. Call it wanderlust. Call it anything you like.
Dick, look at me. Oh, do stop clipping that hedge and look at me.
Yes, Mum?
I insist on knowing what's wrong. I thought you were happy here. I know I've been happy to have you here.
I'd rather not... All right, Mum, but you asked for it.
I asked for what?
It's you, Mum. I'm crazy seeing you day in and day out and having you nice to me. Just nice to me and thinking of you with him and me not having a ghost of a chance. I can't stand it, Mum, that's all. You'll have to let me go.
Poor Dick. You've held this inside you all this time.
Yes.
Oh, Dick, I'm so sorry. So terribly sorry. Come here.
Fire in the garden, flash fire in dry grass on a warm summer morning, perhaps in any case. The boy stayed on his job and nothing further was said in the household. Everything was routine, quite normal. Even the bridge games in the evening, three-handed bridge, of course. July moved on into August. Hot, muggy August nights.
Well, I'm going up to bed. Coming in?
Not just yet, dear. I think I'll read a while. It may be cooler in the library. Good night, dear.
Good night, then. Good night, Alma.
Good night.
A hot, muggy August night. Dark. No moon. Barely a breath of air. James tossed restlessly, sleeplessly.
Anne, that's you, Anne. Coming to bed, dear. Go! Ah.
Well, today, that brickbat can be seen here in the Black Museum. It was Anne's screams which brought Alma and then some of the neighbors. James was not dead, but nearly so. The doctor, Dr. Kinder was his name, examined his patient and proceeded quite efficiently via the telephone.
That's right. The ambulance at once with oxygen equipment. I want the operating theater ready, anesthetists, nurses, and my assistant. Friskin has a badly fractured skull, and with his heart condition, he has about 1 chance in 100 to live. Hurry. I'll wait for the ambulance. Now, the police.
Police?
Well, really, ladies, a man is attacked, half murdered in his bed with a heavy instrument of some kind, and you question my calling the police.
Oh, if only I'd gone upstairs with him. If only I'd gone upstairs. If you had.
Operator, ring through to the police, please. Hurry.
Oh, to walk in like that, to find him there, the blood. Oh, this poor head is breathing that awful gasping.
This is Dr. Kinder. Let me speak to the superintendent, please.
Dick. Where's Dick?
Yes. Where's Dick?
No one had missed the boy until Anne thought of him. With all the excitement, all the horror, no one had realized he was missing. Dr. Kinder finished talking to the superintendent of police and turned back to the two women.
The superintendent is sending an Inspector Ralph. Very good man, he says. CID.
CID?
Criminal Investigation Division. Did I hear you mention someone named Dick?
Yes, Dick Terry. He's the hired man. Well, more of a boy than a man. He has a room over the garage.
And he isn't in the house? He hasn't been here?
No. The neighbors came, but not Dick.
Perhaps I'd better fetch him.
No, stay here. The police will find him.
The police will find him.
They did find him, but in his room over the garage.
Where was he, Sergeant?
In the attic, Inspector, hiding in a corner.
All right, son, speak up. Why?
I got scared. That's it, scared.
What of?
I heard Mrs. Friskin screaming, and I ran over from the garage, and when I got up to the room where the lights were on, Miss Galpin was carrying on, and Mrs. Friskin was just standing there screaming, and he was on the bed, and I just ran.
You didn't offer to help. Why not?
I couldn't think. Nothing.
Why?
I guess I didn't want to be blamed for doing it.
Who would blame you?
Oh, somebody. Anybody.
Did you do it?
No. I never touched him. Never.
All right, Sergeant, hold him in the kitchen.
All right, sir.
I'll talk to the Galpin woman now. What is she, a companion or something?
Cousin of the victim, sir. Lives here.
All right, send her in.
Alma Galpin knew nothing except the discovery of her cousin in the bedroom, but the inspector was curious.
The hired boy says he was scared. Have you any idea why?
Well, he's been making sheep's eyes at my cousin's wife.
No?
People were talking. He's a good-looking boy. She's so much younger than poor James. You know how an ignorant mind works sometimes.
The inspector knew. Also, he was a considerate man. He implied as much to Anne Friskin.
I know you've had a terrible shock tonight, Mrs. Friskin, but I have to ask you a few questions.
Of course, Inspector. I'll try to answer.
Did your husband have any enemies? Anyone who might want him out of the way?
Oh, no. No one. Everyone liked James.
Even the boy, Dick Terry?
Dick? Oh, no. No, you don't think that Dick...
I don't know yet, but we'll have to hold him, Mrs. Friskin. He seems to have something of a motive. At least, there seems to have been some talk.
They held Dick Terry on an open charge pending developments at the hospital. There, James Friskin hung on the fringe of death, barely breathing, completely unconscious. At the house, Alma faced Anne.
The police, what do they know?
I don't understand.
They're holding the boy. They're not even looking for the weapon. And meanwhile, whoever did it could be miles away.
Then you don't think Dick did it?
It's too pat, of course not. Why would he? Even... You never gave him any encouragement, did you,
Alma.
Did you?
You're hysterical.
I know exactly what I'm saying. And I don't believe that boy raised a finger against James.
Then why did he hide?
Wouldn't you, in his position? The police, arrest, the most obvious person. That's all they know. Someone ought to teach them their business. Obviously, they don't.
Well, there are those who would like to teach the police their business. Quite a few people would. Alma Galpin set out to try. And it was with that idea in mind that she appeared in Inspector Ralph's office at the local station house.
Well, Miss Galpin, sit down, won't you?
Thank you.
What can I do for you?
How far have you got in this case, Inspector?
We're still holding the boy. The only charge at the moment is assault. If your cousin dies, well, that'll be another matter.
Then you've done nothing.
For the moment.
I see. I brought you this.
No?
Why don't you open it?
As you wish. Yes, I see. A brickbat with stains on it.
Don't you want to have it checked for fingerprints?
Rough surfaces like this don't hold prints. Why?
It's the weapon.
Oh? How do you know?
I found it. It was in the little pile of leftover bricks at the foot of the garden. James was going to ask the boy to build a barbecue pit with them.
I see. Well, how do you know so surely this is the weapon?
That's blood on it, isn't it?
It might be.
Aren't you going to have it tested?
Probably. Miss Galpin, do you realize that this brick might be the piece of evidence to hang that boy?
It might be. It might hang someone else, too.
Is this a charge, Miss Galpin?
Who stands to gain most? Who would have her freedom? Who would get James' money? Have you thought of that, Inspector? Who wanted the brick wall repaired? Who spent altogether too much time in the garden? Have you given any thought to these questions, Inspector?
Perhaps the inspector had. Others had, that was certain. And suddenly, with one sentence, Dr. Kinder changed the entire complexion of the case.
I'm sorry to have to tell you, Mrs. Friskin, but your husband passed away about 10 minutes ago without ever regaining consciousness.
Now it was murder. And Anne Friskin, the young widow, came to the station house to see Dick Terry in his cell.
Here, dear ma'am, you have 10 minutes.
Yes. Thank you.
I'll be back in 10 minutes.
Oh, Dick. Oh, Dick.
I didn't do it, dear. I'm stuck for it, but I didn't do it.
Oh, Dick, you don't think for 1 minute I believe you did do it.
How should I know what you believe?
Well, you know me better than that. I want to help you.
I know you better. Do I? Do I know any more about you than you know about me?
Oh, Dick, don't talk like that. Please let me help you.
With what, a axe or blade?
I'll get you a lawyer. I have money now. I'll take care of you.
Sure. You've got money now. You've got it all now, and I've got a murder charge. Anything you may say will be taken down in writing and may be used in evidence against you.
Oh, Dick. After what you told me in the garden.
Oh, forget it. Maybe that never happened. Maybe I was really crazy. Maybe you figured more than I meant. Well, what's the difference? He's dead and you've got everything.
You keep saying that. I've got everything.
Well, haven't you? Isn't it what you wanted?
Oh. You think I did it?
Oh, do I? All I know is I didn't, but I'm stuck in this rotten jail. I won't peach on you if that's what you're worried about. Not unless my own neck can't be saved any other way. Oh, maybe you did, maybe you didn't.
Not a very pleasant scene. Not a very pleasant circumstance. The young woman, the boy, the sadly tender phrases of a summer morning shattered between them. However, in the offices on the floor above Dick Terry's cell, Inspector Rolfe and Sergeant Hopkins were more interested in facts than in phrases.
So pathology reports it's Friskin's blood type on that brick. It's the weapon, all right. But who used it?
The boy had a crush on the wife?
Badly enough to kill for her? No, I doubt it.
There aren't any alibis, sir.
That's the trouble. He says he went to bed as usual. No one saw him anywhere that night. The Galpin woman says she went to bed. The widow says she read for a while, went upstairs, and found her husband.
Could all three have been in it together, sir?
How do you figure that, Sergeant?
Well, Mrs. Friskin could have promised Galpin money, and Mrs. Friskin would have had the boy. They might have planned to have the boy actually do it.
Come in.
I'm sorry, Inspector.
Not at all, Mrs. Friskin. Come in. Sit down. I believe you know Sergeant Hopkins.
Yes. I have very little to say. It might be easier standing.
As you wish, ma'am.
I just saw Dick downstairs.
Too bad about him. He seemed a nice lad.
Yes, sir. Inspector, this is not the easiest thing for a woman.
I understand. You have an alibi for the boy? And yourself?
Yes. Yes, I do.
The inspector was an understanding gentleman. He offered no comment. He merely recorded a fact and let Anne Friskin leave his office with her own thoughts for company. Later that same day, he arrived with Sergeant Hopkins in tow at the Friskin house.
Ladies, we've done some further checking and investigation. We thought we'd apprise you of the situation.
I see.
Thank you for that, at least.
We're letting the boy go. He's in the clear.
I knew that all along. I told you so.
Yes, you did, I remember. The day you brought me the brickbat.
Where did you find it?
In the pile at the foot of the garden.
I see that you know, Mrs. Friskin. There is no pile of bricks at the garden. It happens to be in the rear yard, near the back door, close to the foot of the back stairs. The stairs which reach the second floor quite close to the door of your room, Miss Galpin. Now, Sergeant, if you'll stay quite close to Miss Galpin and take down what she has to say.
Taken down and may be used as evidence.
Yes, the usual warning. Well, Miss Galpin? Why did you kill your cousin, Miss Galpin?
She had everything. Even the boy with his sheep's eyes. I had nothing. I thought if I got rid of James, who was too dull to care, she'd be blamed. After her, I'm next of kin. I'd have everything. I saw the little pile of bricks. I meant to put them in the garden later. A brick is heavy. It hits hard!
Today, the brickbat can be seen here in the Black Museum.
Orson Welles will be back with you in just a moment.
They put Alma Galpin safely away, where she could harm neither others nor herself. Dick Terry left that pleasant suburb of London and dropped into the anonymity one can find only in a great city. Anne Friskin sold the house and went far from London to start over, perhaps, but to carry with her always the memory of tragedy on a hot, muggy night, and the memory of a mistake made through loneliness and mistaken kindness. Now, until we meet next time, in the same place, for another story about the Black Museum, I remain, as always, obediently yours. This is Orson Welles, speaking from London. From the Black Museum. Here in the grim stone structure on the Thames, which houses Scotland Yard, is a warehouse of homicide, where everyday objects, a picture frame, a coat hanger, a file folder, a baby buggy, all are touched by murder. Now here's a hammerhead made of cast steel, well-shaped, extremely familiar. The front end blunt, solid, designed for driving nails, the clawed prongs at the rear for pulling nails. Very practical, very, very, very familiar. And so very, very, very lethal.
Odd one, this, wasn't it, Inspector?
Just a little extra patience, a little extra routine work, Cross.
That's one way to look at it, sir. I prefer to remember it as the case which began with almost 24 disappearances and wound up with one killer who used a hammer with purpose.
Well, today that hammerhead can be seen here in the Black Museum.
From the annals of the Criminal Investigation Department of the London Police, we bring you the dramatic stories of the crimes recorded by the objects in Scotland Yard's Gallery of Death, the Black Museum. In just a moment, you will hear The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles. Now, The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles.
Well, here we are in the Black Museum, Scotland Yard's Museum of Murder. Beyond these walls, the Thames seethes with a commerce which is life to London. Within these walls, where some of the river's dampness exudes from vaulted stone, there is quiet, very sinister quiet, a kind of silence which inevitably surrounds objects touched by horror and fear. Yes, here lies death. Behind glass doors, peaceful, inanimate objects on deal tables. The authorities have provided suitable identification in labels and neatly lettered cards. The motives, actions, and the reasons why these objects rest here now were all provided by murderers. Here's a calendar. It's the usual 12-page printed piece with a picture of a pretty girl to decorate it. The holidays are marked as usual in red. One other day is marked as well. The day and date of a murder. Strangely, that red circle led to capture and conviction, of course, to execution. Ah, here we are. Here's the hammerhead I told you about. It's an efficient tool. It's hammerhead, type used by generations of carpenters, by millions everywhere for work around the house. Hardly a home is without one. And one would expect that a story involving such a tool would begin in somebody's home. On the contrary, this tale begins in the direct antithesis to a home. It begins in a London railroad station.
Let me have my bag, will you?
Yes, sir. Your check, please.
Right you are.
Thank you, sir. Here it is, sir.
Hey, that's not my bag. Mine's a Gladstone.
I'm sorry, sir. Just let me see the checks. Oh,
What's wrong? Are you sick?
no, sir. It's just my hand.
You cut yourself? That's blood.
Yes, I know. But it's not a cut, sir. It's from the bag.
Well, open it, man. Don't stand there.
Yes, sir. It doesn't seem like much of a lock on it, sir.
Oh. What does one do now, sir?
When you find part of a body in a valise, you call the police, of course. What else?
Yes, please wait. Yes, I'll call.
Yes, call the police. Start the wheels moving, the wheels of police routine, which grind slowly but inevitably toward discovery. In this particular situation, the call led eventually to the office of Inspector Church at the yard.
Information cross. The contents of that valise at Charing Cross belong to a torso found in Brighton.
Another one in Brighton, sir?
Number 23. 23 girls missing. Just unreported.
Photos available, sir?
In most cases. Here's the assembled composite of the latest.
Pretty little thing to wind up so widely separated as London and Brighton.
Here's the setup for now. I'm assigning a man individually to each case. Identify any found bodies, trace the known missing. I'm taking Daisy Baker myself. You'll take over here, and all the information will channel through you.
Very well, sir. Why the Baker girl for yourself, sir?
Oh, she is, or was, the common-law wife of Jamie Marsden.
That one.
Remember him?
Oh, picked him up in his first conviction myself. Rather a long record, hasn't he, sir?
All petty crimes, short sentences. In any case, the Baker woman's been reported missing by her sister. It might be worth a trip to see the sister. Name is Crandall, Ruth Crandall. Before I drop in Marsden, I think I'll visit the lady.
A routine call to inquire the reasons for a woman's worry about her missing sister. Inspector Church found Ruth Crandall at home.
So, when I planned to go down to stay with Daisy, well, to see her anyway, and the wire came, well, you see how it is, Inspector.
May I see the wire, Mrs. Crandall?
Yes, I have it just here, in the desk. Yes, here it is.
I see. Going abroad. Good job. Sail Sunday. Will write. It doesn't tell us very much, does it?
Well, I tried to call. Her husband, well, he wasn't very cooperative. He said she'd upped and packed her things and told him she was bound for Paris for a dancing job.
Oh, Miss Baker is a dancer?
That's how it was she was living in Brighton. She was in some show down there.
And you feel something is wrong?
Definitely. I don't know exactly why, but... Well, you see, the wire doesn't even say love. And that makes it seem strange, too, doesn't it, Inspector?
Perhaps, Mrs. Crandall. And you've no other information, nothing you can put your finger on?
No. Except, of course, that I haven't heard from Daisy since the wire came.
The inspector was puzzled. None of it felt right. None of it conformed at all to the usual pattern. Ruth Crandall had nothing factual to go on, and a woman's instinct is never evidence on which to base an arrest or a conviction. Still, the inspector took the train to Brighton and called on Jamie Marsden at 35 Park Row.
Yes?
Remember me, Marsden?
Copper, ain't you?
Yes, Chief Inspector Church, CID.
Well, come in, Inspector. I don't suppose this is a social visit.
No, I'm a bit busy for that sort of thing.
Oh, well, sit down anyway, Inspector.
Just a few questions.
Well, go ahead.
I hear you married since we last met.
Yes, I did. Nice girl.
She home?
Well, no, as a matter of fact, she's gone off to Paris. Her job as a dancer over there.
So her sister told me.
Yeah, well, she wired her sister. Nothing much my sister-in-law would want to see me about, so, well, there wasn't much sense in her coming all the way down to Brighton when Daisy wasn't here.
I assume you have your wife's address.
No, Inspector.
Oh?
We had a bit of a dust-up before Daisy left. She, flounced out of here, all kind of mad, as you might say.
Mrs. Crandall know this?
No. Mrs. Crandall don't take to the likes of me, so I saw no reason to tell anything she didn't have to know. If Daisy wants to reach her, she knows where.
Well, that's it, I suppose. You'll be here if I want to see you again, Marsden?
I'm moving. 3 rooms is a bit large for me, seeing as I was on my own these days. The, new place is at, Maitland Street, number 26. It's a good bit cheaper, more suited to my means.
A check of the habitual haunts and acquaintances of Daisy Baker drew another blank. Some had heard she'd gone off to Paris. No one knew where. Meanwhile, the reports on other missing girls were equally discouraging.
That's the lot, eh, Cross?
That's the lot, sir. And another missing one reported makes an even 2 dozen, sir.
Have they tried the picture of the girl we found in Charing Cross on this new report?
Not the same girl, sir.
Too bad.
No luck with Marsden, I presume?
No luck at all. Edgy sort of fellow, that one.
Yes, he ought to be. He's much too familiar with us, and he knows it.
Well, there's no help for it. It'll have to be a house-to-house search.
The usual district, Inspector?
All of Brighton.
Rather a large order, Inspector.
Finding 14 missing girls and identifying 6 of 10 bodies is quite an order, Cross. There's no help for it. It'll have to be done. Chances are we'll have to lend Brighton...
The hard, dull slogging of police routine. Divide a city into sections, assign groups of detectives in pairs to each section, then walk from house to house, from cellar to attic, pausing for the questions. Try to locate someone who has seen something, who may know one of the missing persons by sight. Try. Keep trying.
Well, there was nothing there.
It's jobs like this, Inspector, that make me wonder why I wanted to be a policeman.
It's jobs like this, Shaw, that make good policemen out of ambitious young men. Well, next address.
26 Maitland.
I expect Jamie Marsden won't be looking for me this quickly.
Marsden? Who's that?
Oh, petty criminal. His wife was reported missing by a sister. Turned out she'd gone off to a job in Paris in a huff. Knock on the door, Shaw, will you?
Yes, sir.
Sordid kind of story. Even a touch of the dope racket in it.
Yes?
My credentials. CID. Also a search warrant.
Well, your men certainly didn't waste any time. Please come in.
Waste any time?
Yeah, I called the police about 5 minutes ago. They said they'd send someone over.
You the landlord?
I am, Inspector.
Well, we're here on the matter of our own. However, what's the trouble?
Notice anything, sir?
I do. How about you, Shaw?
Yes, sir, I do.
It's from this room. The tenant is out just now. Left his door locked. Name of Marsden.
Well, is that so? Just as well we have the search warrant. Try your shoulder on that door, Shaw.
Yes, sir.
Oh,
We've never had anything like this before, sir.
there's nothing much here unless it's on the walls.
There's a trunk in the closet, sir.
Drag it out. Cut those cords.
Yes, sir.
Good Lord. May I stay outside, Inspector?
Yes, of course.
No wonder Marsden isn't home.
Well, Daisy Baker didn't go to Paris after all. Took quite a beating, didn't she? Looks like a blunt instrument did the job. Call headquarters, Shaw. Pick up order for Jamie Marsden.
Well, today, that hammerhead can be seen here in the Black Museum.
In just a moment, we will continue with The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles. And now we continue with The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles.
The wires were alive with a search for Jamie Marsden. Somewhere in England, the little petty thief was hiding. And sometime he would be found. According to Chief Inspector Church,
The man almost undoubtedly killed Daisy Baker. And there's no question that he had her body in that trunk, moving it with him.
an inquiry into the whereabouts of missing girls had blossomed into a full hunt for a murderer. The premises at 26 Maitland Street, Brighton, were given a thorough going over. Detective Shaw reported,
Nothing, sir. Not a trace of anything except that trunk and the body.
to which Inspector Church replied,
Very well. Now give the same treatment to 35 Park Row.
There, the young detective reported,
In the backyard, sir, in a pile of junk, we found a hammerhead. It's been given to pathology, Inspector. There are stains on it. They might be blood, sir.
and as Inspector Church said to his deputy, Inspector Cross, some 48 hours later,
Pathology report, Cross. That hammerhead did the job. The stains of blood and the type conform.
Good enough, sir.
Not quite. Good enough. The handle is gone. There's no proof who used the hammer. And pathology also reports that the autopsy shows enough morphine in the Baker woman's body to establish unconsciousness before death, if not death itself.
Any record of dope handling in Marsden dossier, sir?
Nope. We haven't been able to tie him into that yet. Well, we'll see after we find the gentleman in question. Meanwhile, have them get me Brighton on the wire. I have a routine job for Detective Shaw. Too many loose ends in this one.
the call was made to Detective Shaw in Brighton. Armed with a postcard, a file number, and a hand-lettered menu, Detective Shaw invaded a certain telegraph office in Brighton.
Yes, I'm always glad to cooperate with the police, sir.
Can you find me the original of this wire?
I think so, sir. Just a moment, please. This is it, I assume, sir. It has the same file number.
Yes, that's it. Going abroad, good job. Thank you very much. Now, if you'll just let me compare the writing on the blank with these samples I have with me.
Detective Shaw noted his comparisons and went to the telephone. A few moments later, he put a call through to Inspector Church at the yard.
Go ahead, Shaw. What have you got?
They had the original, sir. I compared it with the postcard with the Baker woman's writing on it. I'm no expert, sir, but it's obvious the two writings are absolutely different.
That's that, then.
I had a specimen of Marsden's writing, too, sir.
Where did you get that?
From a restaurant where the man worked for a while as a waiter. The menus there are handwritten. It was part of his job to write them out.
Good man.
There's no question about it, sir. Marsden wrote that wire and signed the Baker woman's name to it.
Another link in the chain rapidly forging itself around Jamie Marsden. But still, no Jamie Marsden.
Every policeman in England's carrying the man's picture and descriptions up.
How long is it going to take to bring the picture and the man together?
Not too long, Inspector. In fact, within 24 hours.
Here, you. Just a minute. You want me, Constable? Stand over there, in the street light. Very well. No weapons. Now, why should I be carrying a weapon, Constable? I'm just an ordinary citizen. Let's have a close look at you. Yes, I'm sure of it. You'll have to come along to the station house. You're being taken in charge. What for? You're Jamie Marsden, unless I miss my guess by a mile. Don't you know there's an all stations broadcast out for you? You're the most wanted man in England this minute.
That was in Manchester. Very shortly thereafter, Jamie Marsden faced Inspector Church and Deputy Inspector Cross in their office at the yard.
All right, Marsden, let's hear it. All of it.
I didn't kill her, Inspector. I didn't kill her.
But you knew she was dead.
Well, if you mean, did I put her in the trunk? I did.
But you didn't kill her.
No, sir. You've got to believe that.
Apparently you seem to understand that it's somewhat difficult to believe.
Well, that was the whole thing from the beginning.
All right. Let's go back to the beginning.
Well, me and Daisy got together down in Brighton about a year ago.
How?
Oh, she was dancing in a coot show and I was barking a booth a little way up the sidewalk. Well, sort of got into the habit of meeting her after closing time. Then, well, we reckoned that two can live as cheaply as one, so, well, we put in together and started housekeeping.
Were you pushing any of the stuff her way?
I didn't know she was on the stuff. No, not for months. Inspector, you've got to believe it.
Yes, it seems that a lot of things we've got to believe.
You heard, Cross, Marsden. I'm, shall I say, skeptical, too. Keep talking.
I'm honest with you, sir, I am.
Keep talking.
Well, Daisy's sister came to visit. We didn't get along. If I'd have killed anyone, it'd have been that sister. What she came for except to be nasty and snoop, I don't know.
Back to the story, Marsden.
Yeah, all right, sir. Well, like I was saying, we got together and everything was fine. Oh, we had a couple of fights, but, nothing much. Then Daisy said as our sister was coming down again. I got real mad. I slammed the door.
You didn't slam Daisy.
I may have cuffed her a bit, sir. Nothing serious. Anyways, I went out, and I stayed out for a couple of hours. I come back, and the place was awful quiet, and I thought, well, maybe Daisy had gone out or taken a shot or two or something. I walked into the bedroom. That was at 35, where we had the 3 rooms.
You walked into the bedroom and let her have it, right, Marsden?
No, sir, wrong. She'd had it. Oh, it was awful, Inspector. She was real bashed up, she was.
Why didn't you call the police?
Me? With my record? Who'd have believed I didn't do it? You don't believe me now. I never killed nobody, just been put away for small things, but I got a record. Nobody had listened, I reckon, so I got real scared. I did the first thing that entered my head.
Which was, Marsden?
I got an old trunk and I stuffed her in it, and then I took the sheets and all down to the cellar and I stuffed them in the furnace. Well, the rest you know, Inspector, and that's the truth, so help me.
What did you do with the hammer, Marsden?
Hammer? Oh, what hammer, Inspector?
The one you bashed her with, Marsden, the hammer that killed her.
I don't know about no hammer. I didn't kill her, nor nobody. I didn't kill her, Inspector, and that's the truth.
They worked on Jamie Marsden for 3 days. They tried every trick, every question they could think of, but no one could shake his denial. Jamie Marsden insisted he had not killed Daisy Baker, and that was that. Weary and exhausted, Chief Inspector Church faced his deputy.
You know, Cross, I'm almost beginning to believe Marsden myself.
If he did kill her, it's completely out of the pattern. His kind of criminal almost never kills.
I know, but somebody killed her. Even granting Marsden's story, somebody killed her.
Well, then, where do we go from here, sir?
Where would you doubt there were or had been other men in this woman's life?
Have you any doubt about it, sir?
You suppose the sister would have any ideas?
Well, it's a place to start in any case.
Check. Then let's get on with it, Cross, and ask the Brighton police to work in that angle.
The sister, Ruth Crandall. Place to start on a new angle, at any rate. The two CID men paid their second visit to Mrs. Crandall.
I suppose, Inspector, you've come to ask me to testify at Marsden's trial. Nasty little man.
As a matter of fact, we haven't. We don't have enough evidence yet to send Marsden to trial. We're booked on suspicion, that's all.
Not enough evidence? Oh, it hardly seems possible. The papers were full of it.
The newspapers aren't the police, ma'am.
Of course not, Mr. Cross. But after all, he did keep my sister's body with him. He did run away.
I know, Mrs. Crandall, but there's been no weapon that relates to Marsden.
No weapon? The hammer's head? Well, after all, that's a weapon.
Did you say a
Mrs.
hammer, ma'am?
Crandall, we came here to ask you about another man in your sister's life. Have you any ideas?
I know this much, Inspector, that my sister was no better than her reputation. Heaven knows I tried. All my life I tried. When my husband died, I offered her a home even. No, she persisted in the disgraceful kind of life she was leading. She even boasted to me once that she liked it. As for knowing the kind of men she went around with, really, Inspector, you've seen how I live. How would I know anything about things like that?
I see. Well, Mrs. Crandall, if you think of anything which may be of help, we'll appreciate your letting us know.
Two men with a purpose left the neat suburban residence of Daisy Baker's sister. Shortly after their return to Scotland Yard, the teletypes, the telephones were all busy. Reports were swift in coming in.
Here's word from the hardware store, sir. A hammer was bought.
The janitor at 35 Park Road did see someone that day.
They found a taxi driver in Brighton who remembers.
One of the neighbors places the date exactly. Says she remembers the house was empty because a little boy was ill and she wanted to borrow something.
Here's the final touch. Local bus driver remembers the trip from out there to the railroad station.
The final touch. And once again, two men from the CID went visiting.
We've traced your movements all that day, Mrs. Crandall. Your neighbor remembers your house was shut up. The bus driver remembers how you asked if you'd reach the station on time. A taxi driver in Brighton remembers taking you to 35 Park Row. The janitor saw you there. And the hardware dealer right round the corner from here has a record of his sale of a hammer. To you.
You shouldn't have mentioned that hammer, Mrs. Crandall. We never told the newspapers about finding it in the backyard at Brighton.
I was right. She wasn't fit to live. Everyone pitied me on account of my sister. They looked down on me. I never felt better in my life than when I hit her, and then broke the handle off the hammer and burned it in that furnace at that awful house. If only I'd been a little more careful. Then you'd have to have tried that Marsden fellow. You'd have to have hung him.
Perhaps. Now then, Mrs. Crandall, are you ready to come quietly?
And today, that hammerhead can be seen here in the Black Museum.
Orson Welles will be back with you in just a moment. Now here in person is Orson Welles.
In due course, Henrietta Crandall paid the usual penalty for premeditated homicide. The purchase of the hammer was sufficient evidence of the intent to kill. As for Jamie Marsden, product of the London slums of bad company and evil ways, Jamie went free. But not for long. 6 months had barely passed before Marsden was picked up for possession of a deadly weapon and sentenced to serve 90 days for simple theft. And as for the hammerhead, well, here it is, in its usual place, in the Black Museum. So until next time, till another story about this same place, I remain as always, obediently yours.
This is Orson Welles, speaking from London. The Black Museum. Here in the grim stone structure on the Thames, which houses Scotland Yard, is a warehouse of homicide, where everyday objects, an ink bottle, a child's raincoat, a sofa pillow, all are touched by murder. Here's an open-end wrench. It's a familiar object. If you own an automobile, you own one of these. At the very least, you've seen a mechanic use one. The steel shaft about 8 inches long. The shaft bulging into a curve shaped like a horseshoe, which fits a bolt exactly. Simple tool. Almost beautiful in its slim efficiency.
Well made, isn't it, Inspector?
We're familiar with these things, Doctor. They're quite common as weapons.
Yes, of course. One skull could be cracked rather efficaciously if this were brought down hard on it.
And today, this open-end wrench can be seen in the Black Museum.
From the annals of the Criminal Investigation Department of the London Police, we bring you the dramatic stories of the crimes recorded by the objects in Scotland Yard's Gallery of Death, the Black Museum.
Here we are, the Black Museum. Scotland Yard's Museum of Murder. Yes, here lies death. Here in silent rows is the ordered catalogue of the violence wreaked by man on fellow man. Here's an empty cardboard match cover. Perhaps you've tossed one into your own wastebasket this very moment, but not like this. Let's hope. You know, from this one, the sulfur-headed matches were ripped to start a fire. A woman died in the burning building. Later, a man died at the end of a rope, trapped by the printed advertisement on this match cover. Ah, yes, here we are. There's the open-end wrench. It's a common tool among mechanics, even among non-mechanical types, bookkeepers, clerks, teachers. No sign of violence or death upon it. Merely a bit of shaped, patterned steel produced for use in the manufacture and repair of modern machines. Look at it in ordinary circumstances, and it'll evoke no thought of tragedy in you, or even in the motorist who traveled an English highway one quiet spring morning. Going at a normal speed, enjoying the fresh sunlight, the new clean green of fields and rising hills. The road curved ahead. White posts marked the edge of the embankment. The road heeled slightly, turning to the left.
Ah, quite a view. Good God, that's a nasty curve. If you're not awake. That fence. It's smashed. Good heavens. There's a car down there.
Minutes only until he's back in his own car, speeding toward the nearest town, toward the nearest police station. There.
Constable, there's a wreck on the curve about a mile south of here.
You have anything to do with it, mister?
Oh, no, of course not. I noticed the broken fence and saw the car down the hill. I say, there seems to be a woman in it. Look, you better come. Bring help.
The doctor, who was also the local coroner, needed little time to determine which of his functions were called for at the wreck.
She's been past help for hours. Must have gone off the road during the night.
I've notified the superintendent about the accident, Doctor.
Yes, well, you fellows will want to trace the car. Any identification on the body?
Nothing in the woman's purse, sir. There ought to be laundry or dry cleaner's marks. It's pretty hard to stay identified these days, Doctor.
Yes, of course. You can tell the ambulance men to take her to the hospital.
Hospital, sir?
Autopsy. I can't just sign a certificate. Accidental death, you know, Constable.
Yes, sir. Very well, sir.
The ambulance drove off to the local hospital. Dr. Mason followed in his own car. At the wreck, the constable saluted a newcomer.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Johnson. Turned turtle, I see.
Yes, sir. This is the man who discovered the wreck, sir. Mr. Frisbee, Superintendent Foster.
Oh, how do you do, sir?
Mr. Frisbee. Yes.
You left your name and address?
Well, with the constable, sir. If I may, I have a business appointment.
Yes, you go ahead. We'll send for you if we need you for the inquest.
Oh, thank you, sir. Well, just let me know if you want me. I'll be available. Any time, sir.
Anything extraordinary, Johnson?
Nothing, sir, so far as we've seen.
No fire?
No, sir.
I'll have a look at it.
Very good, sir.
Superintendent Foster poked around in the twisted metal. A point caught his attention.
Johnson, any idea which way she was traveling?
Downgrade, sir. There are rather clear tire marks on the roadway leading to the break in the fence, sir.
Downgrade. Strange. The gear shift lever is in second position.
Second gear, sir?
Apparently. That grade isn't that steep. Just a point. Well, a woman driver, strange road at night.
She wasn't in the driver's seat, sir.
Oh? Tossed over as the car fell?
Can't say, sir. I'd have expected, sir, that she'd have been pinned behind the steering wheel.
Yes. You may be right about that. Well, we'll leave things as they are. The insurance people usually want to see these wrecks. Hello? What's this?
Open-end wrench, sir. Probably from the...
Yes, Constable?
I was going to say the toolbox, sir. The toolbox was locked. No other tools around.
We'll bring it along to the station house. No sense leaving it out here to rust. And usual routine. Trace the registration of the car, locate the owner, or the next of kin, and check if it was the woman's car.
The usual routine for another auto accident. Another careless or sleepy driver. The usual telegrams were sent. The usual telephone calls were made. The same afternoon, Constable Johnston reported to his superintendent.
Yes, Johnson?
Papers on the accident, sir.
Yes. I see. Owner Martin Beach. Avon Mews, London. Has he been notified?
Yes, sir. He's on his way down. The woman was his wife, sir.
Yeah. Must have been a shock.
Well, I took the call, sir. He kept saying he couldn't understand what she was doing all the way out here.
Well, we'll deal gently with him. Dr. Mason reported yet?
No, sir. Nothing on the autopsy as yet.
Taking him a long time. Well, let's see. Get me Dr. Mason, please. At the hospital. Did you make certain on the tire tracks, Johnson?
We did, sir. They matched perfectly. The car was coming down, sir, on the side of the road away from the fence. It seems to have swerved suddenly, just above the curve, and made rather a beeline for the edge.
Are you suggesting she went over purposely, Johnson?
No, sir. It seemed like a point, sir. Most cars at least try to follow the road, sir.
I notice you keep referring to the car, not to the woman.
She wasn't in the driver's seat, sir, when we found her.
Stickler for detail, aren't you, Constable? Come in.
You're both here. Good.
I just put a call through to you, Doctor. Yes? Oh, yes, thank you. Yes, he's just arrived. Well, what did you find, Doctor?
You ask that as if you knew.
Just a deduction. You don't usually take this long time on these jobs.
I didn't expect to, until I found alcohol in her stomach.
Oh, drunken driver.
I wouldn't know about that. In any case, she wasn't driving when the car went through that fence.
Johnson's been suggesting that rather stubbornly.
He couldn't be more right, Foster.
Why not?
The dead don't drive.
Hello? Anything else?
Quite a bit. In the first place, death was not caused by the accident. She was dead well before the car went over.
You told us that. You don't know how.
Strangulation. Choked. Probably unconscious at the time.
Well, what do you base that conclusion on?
4 bruises. Head and neck.
I noticed those. I thought the accident...
Well, the dead don't drive and they don't bruise, Constable. Those marks were made while she was still alive.
I see. Definitely murder, Doctor.
Definitely.
I'd like to see the body. Come along, Constable. Your instinct...
3 men enter the morgue at the small country hospital. 3 grim faces betray no emotion as they view the woman's body. The doctor says...
You'll notice the marks the strangler's thumbs made there. The obvious bruise is here, just below her hairline, on her forehead.
The superintendent of police says...
I see. Interesting, the shape of that bruise. Almost like a small horseshoe.
Diffidently, the constable clears his throat. Inquiring glance from his superintendent. The young officer says,
We might try for actual size, sir. That kind of mark could have been made by that open-end wrench.
And today, that open-end wrench is to be seen in the Black Museum. The doctor placed the bulged end of the tool against the woman's forehead. The three men stood there silently a moment. The constable spoke.
No question about it, is there, sir?
Not as far as I can see. Johnson, when this beach fellow arrives, say nothing about any of this. And I shall want a trunk call placed immediately. I want to speak with Inspector Hall at Scotland Yard.
The ponderous, inevitable juggernaut that is police work began to move, gained momentum. A fast car brought Inspector Hall and Sergeant Williams from the yard before train connections permitted the arrival of Martin Beach. The inspector listened intently as Superintendent Foster outlined the details. Then, quietly, no fuss, no newspaper headlines. Detectives were dispatched to run a check. Shortly thereafter, a grief-stricken husband arrived at the station house in the company of Dr. Mason.
There's no question about my identification, Superintendent. Dr. Mason will bear me out. I knew her the moment that is...
Doctor. Yes, it's Mrs. Beach.
Can't understand it. I simply can't. She was a good driver, better than I.
How did it happen that she was out alone?
We lived a quiet life. Avon Mills is in a suburb of London, really. She'd often take the car for a drive. I'd go to sleep. I had to get up early. My business is in the city. She said she wanted some fresh air last night. I didn't miss her until I woke this morning. I can't understand it. Why should she be so far?
A simple story, quite commonplace, quite honest. One question seemed to puzzle the husband more than it disturbed him.
Liquor? Whiskey, you mean? No, an occasional drink at a friend's place, that was all. Why? Are you suggesting Louise was a drunken driver?
No, they were suggesting nothing, merely asking a routine question. Yes, they would release the body shortly.
We have no relations, no one. We had only each other. I shall have to notify our friends.
Yes, the police agreed sympathetically, and Superintendent Foster and Dr. Mason escorted him to his London train. Meanwhile, on the Middlebury Road...
Your name, Carey? Yes, sir. My name's Williams, the ID. My identification. Yes, Sergeant. Something go wrong? You heard of the accident down the hill? Yes, of course. How late do you keep this petrol station open? 12, 1 o'clock, depends on the traffic. And last night? I closed up about 1. Locked the tanks and then Any customers around that time? Well, there was a dark sedan, man and woman. You got a good look at the woman? He was driving, bought 5 gallons. She was asleep in the front seat. Any sign of whiskey? Well, he had a breath on him, Sergeant. Seemed in a hurry, too. Edgy. Now, look, this photo mean anything to you? Yes, it looks a little... It's hard to tell at night. The light's bad. Is she sleeping there in the picture? No. She's dead.
They call it backtracking. They try to trace the car along the road it traveled. The gas stations first. In this case, where whiskey was present, the taverns and the inns were checked as well.
You're the landlord here?
Yes, sir. My wife said you're the police.
Yes. We're trying to trace a man and a woman. This picture mean anything to you?
Yes, sir. She was here last night, till closing time. Had a bit too much, I'm afraid, sir.
No. Was she alone?
No, sir. No, with a shortish fella. Dark, quiet, in a nervous sort of way. I remember, because, he wanted to buy a bottle, but I'd none to spare. And I rather thought what with driving and all, they'd already had enough.
That evening, Sergeant Williams gave the inspector his own report and that of the men assigned to the railroad portion of the inquiry.
They routed the conductor out of his bed. He remembers the fellow all right. Bought his ticket on the train. Complete stranger, shortish, and dark.
Yes, she was with a man, all right. Seems to me we'd better break the news to Beach. It won't be pleasant.
It wasn't pleasant. Martin Beach took it quietly, but with obvious shock.
Louise? With another man? Inspector, you can't be serious.
I'm afraid I am. Your wife's picture has been tentatively identified by a petrol station owner and by an innkeeper on the Middlebury Road. They'll be taken over to the hospital to check tomorrow. And she was with a man.
No, it's not possible. No one could have been that secretive. Why? We just lived for each other.
Oh, it's an old story to us, Mr. Beach. You're a busy man. Your wife was alone a good deal.
But when? How?
Well, you told us yourself. She used the car alone and quite often at night.
If I could get my hands on him. Oh, what fools we mortals be.
We want him too, Mr. Beach. Now, will you help us?
Of course, anything. Anything at all.
Then, maybe search your wife's effects?
Of course, Inspector. Search the whole house if you think it will.
They were quite thorough, of course, and very quickly they were successful.
I found these in the stocking box at the rear of the bureau drawer, Inspector.
I see. Letters. Mr. Beach, do you know a Fred Hennessy?
No. May I see the letters?
Right. Well, I think you'd rather not. And we'll be checking them for fingerprints, of course. They're all addressed to your wife. The last one makes the arrangements for a meeting place with the car.
Is there a return address, Inspector?
There is.
Good luck, Inspector.
The inspector and Sergeant Williams had luck. However, it was not exactly good luck.
Fred Hennessy? No, there's no Hennessy living here.
Well, now, perhaps he used another name. A shortish, dark fellow, with a flair for letter writing.
No, haven't heard any shortish men staying here in months.
Well, this is 346 Greenville Street, isn't it?
Well, there's nowhere else, Inspector. What's more, I don't have any letter writers here. Every one of my men roomers except one works at the car factory. They're a tough crowd, Inspector, but they're nice enough to me. I take good care of them, I do.
And the one who doesn't build automobiles?
Oh, he's a constable, he is. Now, what would you want to see him for?
A good question, and a big disappointment. Still, the machinery ground on. The reports came in to the small bare office at the yard.
Here we are. Fingerprint reports, Inspector. Now, the prints on the letters match those they found on the gear shift lever in the wrecked car. The ridge patterns conform to the smudges on the wrench, too, sir.
The conclusion is obvious. At the very least, it placed the maker of those fingerprints in contact with the murdered woman, in the murder car, with the murder weapon.
It looks so as if he pulled off the road, did the job, then started the car downgrade and jumped.
Yes, probably. The unlocked door on the driver's side would indicate that. But what about those prints I told you to try and get?
We have them, sir. Lifted them neatly. I was saving that for the last, sir. You see? They match.
Yes, very good. Thought he was clever. Well, murder's usual in amateurs' crime, isn't it, Sergeant? What about the men to identify him?
They'll be in London in the morning, sir.
To Sergeant Williams, the case seemed complete. The inspector was still somewhat cautious.
It will stick, sir, in any court.
I'll feel better if we have the motive, Sergeant. I'd like a complete case. Identifications have been upset before, and even fingerprints. Given a good motive, we'll hang the gentleman. In fact, we may be able to say he hung himself with his own cleverness.
Inspector Hall here. I see. Very good, Davis. No, just keep your eye on the place. Williams and I will be along directly. Get your head, Sergeant. Very good, sir. Our quarry's gone calling on a lady, and so are we.
The police car sped silently through the London streets, out to a pleasant suburb. It drew up to the curb near a small house detached from its neighbors, surrounded by a hedge and trees. A man stepped out of the shadows, spoke softly to the inspector. He remained at the car as the inspector and the sergeant walked to the front door of the house and rang the bell.
Yes?
Miss Jaffrey? Miss Dorothy Jaffrey?
That's right.
My name is Hall, CID. My identification. May we come in?
Why, yes. Why not?
Thank you.
What can I do for you?
Well, as a matter of fact, Miss Jaffrey, we stopped by to see your caller, Mr. Martin Beach, I believe?
Inspector. Well, this is a pleasure to see you all the way out here.
Is it, Mr. Beach?
Of course.
You know why we're here, don't you?
I assume you saw me come by.
Wait a minute. What's going on here?
Don't you know, Miss Jaffrey?
I know CID inspectors just don't drop in or come by. Martin, have you been up to something?
Stay out of this, Dorothy.
I'll not stay out of it. If we're to be married, I've a right to know.
We've dropped by to tell Mr. Beach about his wife.
Wife? You never mentioned a wife, Martin.
You're not arresting me, Inspector. I was home and asleep when she was killed.
The innkeeper says not Beach. So does the petrol station owner. So does the conductor of the train you took back to London from Middlebury.
I said you're not taking me in. You're not! You're not!
Inspector, there are French doors into the garden.
Your house is well covered front and back, Miss Jaffrey. He won't get far. That's his warning. He'll stop running now.
Oh, this is not the expected way to break an engagement to be married.
Yes, I understand, miss. But you'll get over it. This manner of ending a relationship is far less permanent than the one your fiancé used to gain his freedom from his wife. You know, miss, the chances are quite good that they've got away with it. If he hadn't written some fake love letters and forgotten to hide a certain open-end wrench.
And today, the open-end wrench can be seen in its special place in the Black Museum.
Orson Welles will be back with you in just a moment.
It's an old dodge, of course. May have worked many times. Commit a murder, wreck an automobile to cover its traces. It might have worked this time if Martin Beach had known that dead bodies do not bruise. If he'd been really clever and had succeeded in burning the car and the body. If. But he was not really clever. His cleverness failed him. Failed him at 8 o'clock one morning in Dartmoor prison. As for Dorothy Jaffrey, she disappeared when she had come into the great anonymity which is London. And so until next time, till we meet in the same place for another story about the Black Museum, I remain as always, obediently yours.